own experience, going through feeling money insecure and then getting a little bit more confident with money and finding my own 5-pillar framework to apply to my everyday life and finances. So I have just figured out that the countdown of the first 10 seconds on the broadcasting platform that I use actually shows your face while it's counting down, like newscaster style. So there are definitely videos of me on YouTube where I'm like rubbing my nose and kind of like putting my hair behind my ears and not realizing that I'm on air, which is so bizarre. Given that I have all this media background experience, it's really weird for me to suddenly realize that I'm like this beginning of some of my YouTube videos for the first 10 seconds, thinking that it's just a countdown. So sorry about that. But if you are just joining, you will see this broadcast on whatever platform you are viewing it on. I'm Raven, founder of financial literacy, social enterprise, Money Mind, helping people to find their way to become more confident and empowered with their personal finance and money matters stuff. Now, the way that I do this is using my 5-pillar framework. And all of this is not advice. It's just based on my own opinions and experience of what I found worked for me when I was feeling really insecure about the gaps in my financial knowledge. So I created this little 5-pillar framework to apply to my own life after I'd been working for a while, making loads of money, but still feeling really insecure about managing it. And then realized that it was time to create a plan for myself. And this is a plan I created. 5 pillars: money mindsets, savings, budgeting, investing, wills, and legacy. This is kind of like a checklist that anyone can use to plug and play against their own life. You can do it right now. You can ask yourself, am I okay financially in each of these areas? How are my money mindsets, savings, budgeting, investing, wills, and legacy? Now, if you can answer those pretty easily, then awesome. That's so great. I want everyone to be able to answer these really easily if they want to be able to do that too. And if you aren't sure or you need a little bit of a prompt, you can go over to our website, moneymind.global. So that's www.moneymind.global, and have a look at our free samplers where you can check each of these pillars. You can do the 5-pillar sampler bundle and check all 5 pillars, see where you're at. Or you can just do the individual samplers to check maybe your savings pillar or your investing pillar, whichever one it may be, that you feel a little bit less secure about. Or even if you feel secure in this area, just to check yourself against and make sure you really are. And you might well be, and that is great. That's what we want everyone to be able to say. Yes, I am aware in each of these pillars and either working on them, continuing to work on them, developing in them, growing in them, just generally comfortable and confident with my current status in these pillars. So for example, I'm constantly doing money mindset work. I constantly listen to podcasts on money mindset, mindset hacks. I'm studying some psychology courses with Cambridge and Oxford universities in the UK, and I will hopefully be embarking upon a psychology degree next year. And let's see which area I end up going towards in terms of cognitive psychology or neuropsychology. I'm not quite sure, but I'm very interested in our brain and how we can hack our brain to get better results. So money mindsets, I'm really making progress in cleaning up my money mindsets in this area. And where I'm working on now is my entrepreneur mindsets and money mindsets, right? So that's a really interesting area for me to consider stepping further into, getting coaching on, paying for coaching courses, and growing my money mindsets in business, as well as my personal money mindsets. So for me, that's where I'm at with my money mindsets pillar. I hope you can answer yours, however works for you. In the savings pillar, right? We're all familiar with savings. We learn about it from when we're really young. This one, yeah, really happy with the current status of savings. Might increase some savings, but so far, good. Budgeting pillar. This is my weakest pillar. And this is the area that I can do better expense tracking in. And after doing a broadcast the other day, I was like, you know what, I could really make a bit more effort with that. And so I have now been tidying it up, and I write everything to the dollar and cent. And that's been the past few days. So I can get a little bit lax in this area and input stuff or sometimes miss a thing or two. but then I pick myself up and I get back to doing it really, really accurately. And I do this in an app called iExpense-It. There are lots of other budget tracking apps out there. Find one that works for you if that's what you want. And I have created a budget that's called the sort of 25% budget. And it's just a really easy reference that I use to say, okay, 25% quarters. If you put all of your spending roughly into 25%, savings 25%, and then necessities 50%, where are you at? It's more of a measure and a guide to see where you're at in terms of this. So that works quite well for me in terms of being able to always check where I'm at in those areas. And it might be, like flexible depending on time and month and life situations, but it's just a really great way for me to be able to look at things in quarters and say, I don't necessarily want to be like spending more than 25%. I don't necessarily want to be saving less than 25%, or whatever the case may be. Hi, Tony. Great to see you. Thanks for joining. So checking those pillars again: money mindsets, savings, budgeting, investing. There's always more to learn about in investing. It's super fun. I really enjoy this area actually. And wills and legacy. My wills and legacy have been done for ages. If I wanted to do a cleanup, then I can totally go and do a cleanup now. And every time that we get married, have a big life change, we want to go and update our will. So if you're over 18, you definitely need a will. That's kind of how you just want to run through and be able to do these pillars on a checklist just on your own hand right now. And in the topic of today, which is don't wait to feel ready, start now, or how to start now versus waiting to feel ready. If you have been postponing on your personal finance, if you've been postponing on doing your money stuff or just getting on top of it all, then this is a great place to start. You don't have to feel ready for it. And it's easy enough to do just right now and ask the questions. How are my money mindsets? Am I happy with them? Do I need cleanup? Savings, budgeting, investing, wills and legacy. If you're not sure, you can go over to our website, moneymind.global, and check out the free samplers there. There's also paid pillars. Now, the free samplers are 10 minutes, like little tiny bites with 3 questions inside. Now, the paid pillars are 1 hour, so they're much more intensive. And you want to try the free samplers first to make sure that you like the style and sort of the content and how it's presented. So free samplers over the website, paid pillars you can buy now, and they're rolling out over this year. They just launched in March. Yay, on my mom's 70th birthday on March 12th. Happy birthday, Mom. And they are rolling out sequentially. So money mindsets will be in March. And then next will be savings, budgeting, investing, wills and legacy, and that will be per month. So then you can sign up for any of them now, but you can access them at their month that they're available. So this is something you can jump right into and just do right now without having to feel ready. But the topic of today is how to start now versus feeling ready. And this is something that I struggled with a lot in the past. I felt like I had to have all the information and feel ready to do something before I could really dive into it. And now I'm experiencing this in a different way, since I know in my mind, in my prefrontal cortex, right? So remember, we have the prefrontal cortex in the front of our brain, the limbic system in the back of our brain, that is our decision brain, and our child brain. And our child brain is where we will trigger into emotions when we feel stress, and our prefrontal cortex will be able to make good conscious decisions. But we don't tend to use both of them at the same time. So if you ever find yourself struggling to hold your emotions in check, you're kind of trying to vacillate between making sense and the emotional side. And so this is something that I'm very interested in, but it's only useful to note here because if we feel emotions about a decision, we can tend to procrastinate or do them later or wait until we feel ready. They're all sort of versions of procrastination, unless we are the personality type to be collecting data to make a decision and know that we are going to make that decision as soon as we have enough data. So if we're really analytical like that, that may work for us. But for a lot of us, is procrastination that can tie in with waiting to feel ready, to start a diet or exercise program, or waiting to feel ready to start that new program of education. Maybe it's a little expensive, maybe it's not the right time. Sometimes that is very valid, and say if you just had a baby and started a new job, it may not be the time to take on doing a university degree, right? Sometimes that will be the case. If that is the case, great. But we have to be well aware of the fact that we can use those real instances as examples for excuses, for our brain to make an excuse and say, oh, it's just not the right time. So we really need to be able to check ourselves and say, is this actually not the right time? Or am I having some, sorry, my words today are not coming out. Am I having some emotions about this that are making me use the reason that it's not the right time, when really I don't have to be ready to start this. I just have to start and continue. So huge things like my psychology degree, I knew at the start of this year and the end of last year, I wanted to do this. I want to go into psychology. I want to find out more about how the brain works, neuroscience and neurostructure and everything about it that can help with cognitive psychology, decision making, how we make decisions and how to make them easier to apply in our lives, right? I like that. I like the hacks so that things are just a little bit easier. But now that I'm progressing through the year, I know that I had planned last year that the following year, I would start a psychology degree, right? This is my plan. My brain, my prefrontal cortex, knew this is a great idea and I would love to do it. And I can spend this year studying courses that would complement that main degree and get me into the learning mindset so that I can be ready for that full degree. Now, it's going a little bit clunkily. I'm learning a lot. But as I get closer to doing this psychology degree, I'm starting to feel like maybe I'm not ready. Maybe, blah, blah, blah. And I know this is just some part of my limbic brain or like worry self saying these things because I don't feel like I have the tools in place right now to be able to do this excellently to the standard that I want. And the thing is that we can use that in one of two ways. We can use it to avoid taking action, or we can use it to push us to take action. So what I'm going to do is say, okay, if I have this feeling, I need to soothe myself by making sure that I implement more supportive actions to help myself progress on this path so that I can more easily complete whatever task I want to do. So when this comes to our finance, how we can apply this is if we're avoiding our finances, which is one of the biggest factors in creating our own financial ruin in our future. If we're avoiding finances, bad decisions, but avoidance is a really big thing that a lot of people succumb to without realizing that it's ruining their future by choosing inaction instead of choosing building their financial future. It's kind of like sitting there with a big pile of bricks, and the weather's nice. It's the cricket and the ant, right? Sitting there with a big pile of bricks, and you have to build your house to protect you from like the world and life. And you're just kind of sitting there, putting it off until later because the weather's nice and, I'm not quite ready and I need to be a bit stronger before I can start building the house. Sometimes you just got to start building the house. And even if it takes ages and you take breaks in between, you've already started. So one of the hacks to get started is to sandwich between two other tasks. Now, when it comes to our finances and our financial life, while this is not advice, these are just sort of action hacks we might be able to consider applying if they're relevant to us. We can say, okay, what am I avoiding in my financial life and what am I doing well? And if we want to add something to the area that we're doing well, then that is a great place to start. And we can add something into the area that we're doing well by sandwiching some new thing between two current habits. Like say, if we have coffee every morning and just sort of stare at the wall while drinking coffee, we might be able to listen to a podcast while we're drinking our coffee, or do one of the free samplers in the 10 minutes while we're drinking our coffee. that takes us in the direction we want to go with very minimal effort while we're already doing something else that is an ingrained habit. So if we catch the bus every day, then on that time, we might already do something. We might stare out the window a lot. We might take notes. We might do nothing. We might just look at other people. We could listen to a podcast. We could make notes. We could do reading. We could do whatever we could do. But what is it that's going to be the easiest that already complements what we're already good at? How can we learn more in an area that we're already good at? So that is one way that we can approach making it easier to start now. Adding something on next to something that we're already doing in a very small bite-sized way. Even if it's just 1 minute's worth, it's still something. Starting really tiny is the best way to start now versus waiting to be ready. So if we want to be really sort of, I'm going to hack this and super courage myself, which sometimes we want to do because we want to feel the shift. And if we're that type of personality type that we want to do that and try that, sometimes we can aim to address the area that we avoid the most. So in our personal finance life, we can go the two ways of hacking getting started. We can start, which is the way that I prefer actually, because I can do both, but I find that this way sticks better for me, because if we attack the way that is uncomfortable for us, there's chances that we will try and make excuses to avoid it because it's uncomfortable. So I find that adding stuff, like say, if you're going to try and change your diet, I find that removing a lot of foods only lasts temporarily until we get back to our old habits. And then they might be slightly different, but there's a lot of the old things that were still in there that we go back to. And that's only temporary. So what I found started to work much better for me in terms of increasing my like healthy foods in my life was adding stuff instead. So say if I say I'm going to eat a salad before I eat some other portion of food, then I have less room for that other portion of food. I'm not taking away the other portion of food. I'm just adding a salad. And I found that as time goes on, I'm starting to add the salad, and then the other portion of food is decreasing less naturally. So in the personal finance scenario, if we have an area that we're already good at, say saving, we can look into ways that maybe saving can become great in terms of investing. We can look at ways that how active savers can use their saving personality to buy certain like index funds, ETFs, whatever types of investments that work for them, right? So maybe people who are, if you're really good at spending money and like shopping, on like what investments are traits to new skills in slightly different but related areas. So that's why in our lives where we can approach good at or like least confident, then it's often, and it's especially our finances, often because of some fear-based underlying motivator. So some people want a free sampler in or in budgeting is something that intimidates or kind of freaks me out, or I'm just avoiding, but I want to get quite thing in that start or where to start, or not direction in terms of education. So like it's not a good idea to like dive into suddenly trying budgets and suddenly investing and suddenly like saving half your salary, right? If you haven't got the structure in place to be able to make that work. But you could take education steps in the areas that you feel you avoid the most and are perhaps intimidated by, because that's a good way to get a start in an area that you may never feel ready for, but you know that it would be beneficial to do and feel like you might always avoid this area. So If you have your personal finance life and you have areas you're good at, you can add on areas that are sort of interrelated with other areas you feel you might be a little bit weaker in. And then if you have areas that you're avoiding or intimidated by, if you really want, you can go with approaching those and asking, what am I avoiding? How do I address it to overcome my fears in those areas and start proving to myself that this is a safe place and I can develop education skills so that it no longer feels as scary? Because our brain just needs us to prove that the new habits, the new area is not scary. It's not unsafe, and it's not going to kill us somehow, because our brain thinks fear equals danger. And unfortunately for our modern lives, there's a lot of stuff that we stress about. And the stress can also translate and overlap into some kind of fear, which equals danger, which really dealing with our money is not dangerous. And not dealing with our money is not dangerous. Like, we're not going to get physically injured by it. But if our brain is translating danger, danger, we're going to avoid it. So an easy way to get started is by going with my preferred way, which is going with something that you're good at in your personal finances and seeing what you can add on top of it. So you could try the free samplers in the areas that you're already really good at. And you can go over to www.moneymind.global and see the free samplers and try them out. And say you're really great at savings, you could try that one, and then it will just confirm what you already know. And then you might be able to try something that is like you're good at, but you're not as good at. And it will help you to reinforce that learning about this stuff is not dangerous. It may be a little bit intimidating or unnerving, but I will sandwich it in with my coffee every morning. There's 5 samplers, 5 days coffee, right? I can get it in there 10 minutes at a time, and I can actually assess and adjust my own money foundation just by checking off these 5 pillars and making a start in some area. If you're avoiding doing your will, could you just start, make a step, make an appointment with someone who does wills in your area, research someone who does wills in your area, figure out who you want to go with, ask for a recommendation from a friend. Can you, with your investing, start to educate yourself? Follow Instagram accounts that give more information on areas that you might be interested in, even if you're unnerved about them right now. And with, budgeting, you could do things like consider the different types of budget styles. Like, if you are not a strict budgeter, like I am so not a strict budgeter, it can be beneficial to know that there's a zero budget where you just allocate your savings and your necessities and then spend the rest. I mean, sweet. This is as easy as the budget can get, right? But it's still a type of budget. So knowing that there's different things out there that might actually be a fit for you are worth knowing about. And then you can make a choice. Does that work for me? And did I know that before? Because, if I didn't know that before, then maybe I was just avoiding stuff that I didn't need to avoid, because really I'm much better off just doing it like that, getting it out of the way. And then once you start and overcome that hurdle by gaining knowledge and taking a little tiny bit of action in this area, you'll just keep going. It's easier to get momentum once you start, but you can't get momentum unless you start. And that's why starting is the hardest part. People love to carry on momentum, and it's like a success hack that is so widely spoken about, but it's very hard to really get into our minds unless we do it or have experienced it in some way. And a lot of us don't really think about it when we are experiencing it. But the fact is that starting, getting up in the morning, right, from here to here is hard. It's harder than getting out and walking to get coffee, right? The getting up part is the hard part. And most of us will recognize that. Getting started is the hard part. So if we can just ditch waiting to be ready for stuff and think, what is the next action I could take to just get it done? Like, get it done and out of the way, like ripping off a Band-Aid, get it done fast, get it done as best I can in the time that I give myself is a good hack. Can I just get this done? Because for most of us, dealing with it like that, saying it doesn't have to be perfect, but what's the next step that I can take in this area and get it done, is the way to get started and moving on something before we feel ready, is just to bypass feeling like we have to feel anything about this task, whatever it is, and say, how can I take an action on it? So action is the key to getting going. Sandwiching it between habits is a really good idea. And then choosing to add things instead of take them away or address the hardest thing first. You can do that if you like, but choosing to add things onto habits that you already have in a way that branches out and overlaps with areas that may be a little bit more difficult is a really great education tactic to make your brain recognize that this is safe. Taking this path is safe. Doing new things is safe. Changing something is safe because we're not leaving anything behind or really like massively letting go of stuff. It happens as a side effect. We are growing into a new thing. We are taking a step in a new direction and we are adding this behavior in a way that soon we'll start to choose this behavior more than the other behavior. And as a result, the other behavior will start to fade away. And so that is my tip for today on my hack for how to start versus feeling like you need to be ready. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. It's a little bit of a shorter broadcast today than the other day when I rambled for like an hour. My goodness. But my name is Raven. I am founder of financial literacy social enterprise Money Mind, where we hope to help people feel more confidence, less stress, and more empowered about their personal finance using our 5-pillar framework of money mindsets: savings, budgeting, investing, wills, and legacy. So if you want to see more about that, go over to moneymind.global. You can also follow our Instagram at moneymind.global, and I will see you on the blog possibly for our summary of this video, and I'll probably see you tomorrow as well. So thanks for watching, everyone.